Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today we have a little video for you, mostly aimed at the newer beginner players of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And this video is going to be entitled 10 Tips for Beginners for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Now the idea behind this is I've looked at some rules and some questions I keep getting asked by newer players, both my local community and online, or indeed on places like my Discord server, etc. and all of that. But what I want to do is just give these tips, these sort of rules point outs that get asked a lot, and just make a little video about them. And these are 10 that always come up, or that I'm always pointing out and just sort of talking my way through newer opponents when I play them. So without further ado, let's get cracking into this. This is 10 tips in Warhammer Age of Sigmar for beginners you might have missed while reading the rulebook. Number 1, you must designate what you are doing when picking your battle tactics for the turn. Now, battle tactics are the abilities that you have to choose and the objectives you have to choose per turn that you do. They're the conquer and hold the line and all those sort of things that you get, that major integral part of the game that is Age of Sigmar 3.0. And when you declare them, you actually have to pick exactly what you plan to do. You can't just go conquer and then take one objective off your opponent. You have to go conquer, and I plan to conquer the objective on the far left. Point out the objective. You have to designate everything with these of what you're going to do. When you're doing the one for the Furious Advance, the one where you have to run 3 units, you have to pick 3 of your units to run and then complete it with them. You can't just have 3 units run near each other and hope for the best. So it's always really important to remember and think about that when you're doing it, because you need to be able to not only achieve it, but you need to have units that can actually do it as well. So you need to be picking the whole thing to make sure it's something you can definitely do. Number 2, you control all objectives that you start the game on. So after you've both set up your armies, but before the first turn is taken, so this both includes after the movement of pre-game move units, things like Ungor Raiders and Untamed Beasts, you then look to see which objectives you control, and you immediately gain control of any objectives that you thus do. So what this means is you don't have to have units waiting in your backfield ready to go out and snatch objectives, or having to wait behind your units as well while the rest of your army moves forward. Having these units stand back and hold your objectives, it allows you to play the game and get all your units into the fight and into the scrum doing something straight away. Number 3, you control all objectives or an objective until your opponent takes it off you. So this means once you gain control of an objective, your opponent then has to take it off you in order for you to stop controlling it. This means units do not need to stay on objectives, although it is worth mentioning that there are some of the battle plans that do require you to have units on them in order to control them or continue controlling them or accumulating points. So always check your battle plan but as a rule of thumb and the standard way it works, a unit controls an objective once you gain control of it, and then you can freely move off it and keep continuing to control the objective and gaining points off it during the game until a time that your opponent then takes it off you. A little side note on this one as well, if your opponent tries to take an objective off you and actually ties the amount of models that you have on it, you still control it, because objectives are controlled until they're taken off you once again. Number 4, you cannot move within 3 inch of an enemy model even if just passing by, unless you have flyer or are charging. So, when you play the game, all models in Age of Sigmar have effectively what we can refer to as a control zone. This is the part where you can't move within enemy units, or within 3 inch of enemy units while you are moving, or end your move in that range. It is important to note that if, say, 2 of your opponent's units are both 6 inch away from each other, you can't actually fit through the gap, because that would take you within 3 inch of either unit. However, if you have flyer or you're charging, you of course ignore these rules, but you still can't, with flyer, end your move within 3 inch, so you must be able to wholly pass out of that 3 inch bubble. Charging obviously is charging into combat, and you're ignoring all these rules, but it does mean that you can use this to your advantage as well when playing, because you can set up these screens and then put these gaps in between them. Your opponent can't move through. There's some really good tricks out there with various models in the game that make this a really cool tactic. Number 5, units that become battleline lose all other unit types. So you'll find in many battle tomes there will be times when a unit becomes battleline if you're doing certain things. Now, the main thing I'm talking about here is monsters, or rather behemoths. So we'll look at cities of Sigmar. If you're playing in the Anvil Guard subfaction, Charybdis and War Hydras become battleline if you're playing in that subfaction. They, when they do so, lose their behemoth keyword and thus can't be put in any sort of battalions that require you to be taking behemoths, or thus don't take up your behemoth slots in your army, allowing you to take more monsters than you otherwise would. This is really important for a couple of reasons. It only removes their behemoth sort of unit status, but doesn't actually remove the monster keyword off them, so they still get things like monstrous rampage and all that. However, they can't be put into the particular battalions as well that require you to be taking behemoths. However, this does mean as well they've lost that behemoth keyword, so they can fit into battalions like a battle regiment as just one of your regular units. Number 6, 25mm bases are less than an inch. I know, basic math, but not everyone realizes what this means. This means though, models can fight in multiple ranks even if armed with 1-inch reach weapons. Because their base sizes are less than an inch, this means a 1-inch reach weapon allows them to fight over each other in a singular rank. This means models like Free Guild Guard or Ungors and stuff like that have those 25mm bases can fight in 2 ranks and get more attacks to bear. This is also really cool on models with 25mm bases that have a range of more than 1 inch. So things like 2-inch reach, things like Phoenix Guard or Wildwood Rangers can get a lot more models to bear as they can fight 3 ranks deep when in combat. This means you can bring those forces to bear, and it does mean that 25mm bases fight a lot better in large units, meaning the new coherency rules don't really affect them as much as first of all you might think they do, because of how you can deploy in combat and fight in those multiple ranks. Number 7, you can have multiple command models in a unit. Now, this does have some restrictions. Normally, champions are restricted to 1 per unit. However, there are other types of command models like banners and musicians, and you can have multiple of them. Generally, sort of a number of them allotted to you per the amount of times you've enhanced the unit or given it reinforcements. So you might get something that says like for 1 in every 10 models you can have a banner, you can have a musician. So this is a really cool thing. This means you can be a little more lenient on how you place those models, meaning they're not going to get trapped and have to be the one removed, so you lose the benefits from having musicians and banners in your units. So definitely something to always consider is when you're playing with those bigger units, to build a banner for every 10 models you've got in the unit, and build a musician if you can for every 10 models in the unit. Always read your war scroll to double check on this, but it's something to definitely pick up on and make sure you've got a full complement of them. Number 8, unless specifically stated otherwise, command models have the same weapons and equipment as the rest of the unit. Now, the normal way this is disregarded is in champion models, which sometimes gain additional weapons or change out their weapons for something else. But for musicians and standard bearers, for the vast majority of units in the game, they get the same equipment and weapons as the rest of your unit, despite not having them actually modeled holding them. So this is something to, once again, always consider and read your war scroll properly to make sure this is the case. If it doesn't say they don't change their weapons, then they continue to have the same weapons they had before. They do not drop them in favor of being a musician or standard bearer unless specifically stated. Number 9, units can freely split their attacks against multiple targets. If you've got a unit that's fighting away against multiple different fronts, it can split its attack profiles up and fight against multiple enemies on multiple different fronts. This allows you to put in different attacks, put in your rend where it's needed, and put in all that damage where you need to, meanwhile doing lessened wounds or not even attacking certain units you're engaged with. It gives you a lot of options in what you can do in the combat phase. Number 10, units gain cover if they are on or behind terrain, but cannot gain cover when they charge. So cover's pretty cool. It gives you +1 to your save. Nice. This means you don't have to use all that defense. Remember that you can't stack your saves past +1, but you can gain more saves to negate some rend, but it's a really cool thing. Gaining cover, it became a lot easier in the new edition. Before you had to be wholly within terrain, but now you can be wholly within or behind, and this is for any sort of terrain. So if your opponent has to draw line of sight from its models targeting your unit and has to pass through terrain at any point, you get +1 to your save. Nice and simple. Of course, you don't get this when you charge. And so, lastly, I want to ask for your tips for newer players. What are some rules you always get asked by newer players in your community, and ones you see just generally missed or not understood clearly? I'd love to know them, and please leave them down in the comments below to help any new player coming to find this video to get grips with Warhammer Age of Sigmar and just not be caught out by any of these little rules, nuances, or misunderstandings that might happen within our game, so they know a little bit better and everyone has a better time because of it. Well, thank you all for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fun little community here at Cinderful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. We're always on there. There's always someone chatting. You can go on there and have a good time. Next up, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so by following one of the links to Patreon, YouTube members, or following a link to our merch store on Teespring and grabbing some merch to help support the channel in that way. But also, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. So first of all, a big thank you to our Patreon members, Christian Weir, James, Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shop First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, MJ, and Dynat226. And a special thank you as well to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, Matt Mollum, Becky Kinsker Groupie, The Johnny84, and El Mapache. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Lady Witchfox Art, first of all, who does all the amazing artwork you see on the channel, and also to Xmorphic, who does an amazing job of running the Discord server and doing all the background work there for us. Thank you all for watching once again though. Stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.